Hi, and welcome to Simple Keys for Happiness. My name is Chris Merrill. This is the podcast where we share time-tested tips that help you feel happier, healthier, and help you enjoy a better life by doing one simple thing, changing your perception. We're glad that you're here, and we hope that you'll stay listening to us each week as we keep exploring different things. Our podcast today is about the power of gratefulness. Now, gratefulness is a universal topic that's been discussed a lot, and you hear a lot about it in a lot of places. Most religions believe that gratitude is a fundamental element of being happy or spiritual or religious, having a spiritual experience. Yoga and New Age spirituality also believes in the power of gratefulness. Corporate mindset programs, motivational speakers, you hear about it from so many different places. Even authentic spirituality says that gratefulness is the root key to having an authentic spiritual experience. So even though it's in the world around us all the time, it's kind of amazing to see that we don't really understand it. According to an interesting study in 2010, gratitude has two core components. The first one is an affirmation of goodness. And then the second one is for us to acknowledge that the source of this goodness is outside of us. Okay, so number one, there's goodness. Number two, the source of goodness is something other than ourselves. I'm going to leave whether it's outside of you or inside of you off the table. In that study, they said it was outside of you. Now, so number one, there's goodness. Okay, this is a good place. We have a good experience. That means that it's possible to tap into that goodness all the time. Gratefulness is the fastest way to tap into that goodness. Most people experience intermittent bouts of gratefulness, kind of coming in and out of their daily routine, right? You're grateful that your alarm went off, or you're grateful that your kids are happy, or you're grateful that your dog is healthy, or whatever it is that you're going through. You're grateful that the chicken that you cooked was so tasty, right? So most people experience that on a regular basis, but they also experience kind of the flip side, which is lots of things where there isn't what they want in their life, okay? And so we wanted to just explore that while sometimes you can be grateful for some things and sometimes you're not grateful for some things, in terms of using gratefulness to be happy, there are some important things you want to consider. Number one, more gratefulness is more effective than less gratefulness. Okay? That's interesting. If you're more grateful, it's going to have a bigger impact on you than if you're less grateful. It seems really kind of basic. But remember, we're talking about perception here. This program is designed to help you shift your perception. So in shifting your perception, more gratefulness is more effective than less gratefulness. The more grateful you are, the less you experience a state where you're not grateful, okay? So number two, frequency of your gratefulness matters. Number three, the depth of your gratitude is important. There are things that, everybody is kind of grateful for. And then there are really like core deep things that just strike you that you're kind of, I want to say overwhelmed, but let's just say they whelm you. Okay. And those things are places where we really are able to kind of touch the core of who we are. We experience a moment of connection and we see kind of the goodness of all things in life. So the depth of our gratitude is important. And number four, gratefulness is like a muscle. You have to use it to strengthen it. It's not an intellectual pursuit, okay? You can't most people, they want to be grateful, but they haven't realized that there's a verb in there. So most people want to be grateful, or most people want to be happy. They haven't realized that The secret to being happy is to be happy, right? The I amness of that happy can't be separated from the happy. In other words, the cause can't be separated from the effect. And number 5, consciousness trumps unconsciousness. You're going to hear this repeatedly with me. Meaning, it's good to be grateful now and then for everyday occurrences, things that are easy to be grateful for. And it's even more important to develop your gratefulness skills to be able to apply it consciously, right? Someone knocks over something in your house. Oh, thank goodness. I get to clean that part of the floor where I've been looking at cleaning it a little bit extra. Oh, I'm glad because actually I didn't want to finish this, whatever. Oh, look for ways that you can be grateful in places that normally you might not want to apply it. Experienced practitioners of gratefulness realize that the more difficult it is to be grateful, the more important it is. And conversely, the more rewarding, right? So this includes learning to be grateful for things that don't go how you wanted them to go, right? Maybe you wanted a date and it didn't work out very well, okay? Being grateful allows you to kind of shortcut the learning time of the pain and suffering that you're going through for that until you actually begin to see, oh, maybe there's a good reason why it didn't go well and it didn't work out. Maybe it's a good thing that you didn't continue down that. So it also includes, this is a really core concept actually in terms of gratefulness, the understanding that gratefulness cuts the time of suffering for you to see the lesson or what might have happened, okay? So remember that. Gratefulness, being grateful also includes being grateful for things that you don't like. This can be situations, people, it can be work, it can be a deadline, it can be something that you, I don't know, wanted to do or didn't want, but you didn't want to do. There's things you don't like sometimes. Learning to be grateful for them is really, really powerful and important. Also being grateful for things that you don't want. You don't want situation X to happen in your life, and it does. So you just think about that, okay? Be grateful for it. Maybe there's a secret reason. Okay, remember, number 1, everything is goodness, okay? So if you tap into that goodness, then maybe that goodness is actually taking care of you. Maybe it's a good thing that this thing that you don't want happened. Maybe there's something useful out of it. Or maybe you just never know with gratefulness. Maybe the thing that you really wanted is actually the secret to that thing that you really wanted that you've been trying is in the thing that you didn't want that happened to you. But you can't figure it out. You won't find it unless you're grateful to be able to look at it. Does that make sense? Also, learning to be grateful for situations that cause you pain or suffering. I don't want to talk about this, just to be honest with you, because as a teacher, usually when you're teaching something, you have to experience it in order to be able to teach it better, or in order to demonstrate that you're not just talking the talk, that you're walking the walk, right? So, but being grateful for situations that cause you pain or suffering is a really good way to apply your expertise. And then not only that, but sometimes it's like just a blip. We have to learn to be not just the kind of like unconscious blip, but like maybe it's like a chronic situation, and just learning to be grateful. Remember, gratefulness is like a muscle. You have to use it to strengthen it. Being grateful for things that you didn't know you were grateful for, or that you weren't grateful for, right? One of the interesting things about the universe is that it has a tendency to remove things out of your life that you didn't want. Not just that you didn't want, but that you demonstrated you didn't want based on how you were being. Okay? So it's not so much that you didn't want it, it's that if if I have a friend, if you have a friend and you're constantly dumping garbage in their car, they may not want to let you use their car anymore. They may not even want to take you in it for a ride. So at that point in time, you didn't realize how grateful you were to be able to have that. And finally, learning to be grateful for your challenges, just kind of everything that happens in life, because life is a little bit like hiking. Sometimes you have to climb up to get to the view. Sometimes you have to climb down to get to the view. Sometimes you have to climb up and down to get to the place where you have a beautiful experience. Usually people love the view when it's up high. Some people like the process of going up. Some people like the process when you have to, like, when it's easy and you just go downhill, right? And you get to the valley. Either way, you want to learn to be grateful. There's a quote. Oh, I wish I could remember this completely. There's a quote that says, learning to, you have to learn to love the flower as even when all of the petals have fallen off of it. Okay. So, and I said finally, but I really meant kind of semi-finally, learning to be grateful immediately when something goes wrong. First thing, oh, thank goodness that happened. Oh, I'm so grateful that happened. That's good, right? Because remember, we're working on changing our perception. So you want to be able to shift your perception kind of quickly when something goes wrong. Okay, great. What can we do about it? That's one way. You step into action. Number two is you just start looking for gratefulness. Oh, I'm so grateful. You look for something that the going wrong allows you that you did want. Okay. So those are really, really good things to know. From a spiritual perspective, it's important to talk about gratefulness because gratefulness opens your heart. Your heart is the primary organ concerned with emotional and spiritual well-being. Okay. Your needs. And in spirituality, they say a grateful heart is an open heart. Okay. If you feel like you want to expand your emotional health, you want to be emotionally happy, gratefulness is it's the simplest and most practical first key you can apply. Gratefulness, we're starting with it in this session because this is called Simple Keys for Happiness. Gratefulness immediately changes your perception of a situation or of a person or a friend. And beyond that, gratefulness automatically redirects whatever the painful, harmful energy that's coming towards you into something that can benefit you. Now, those words that I'm using there are kind of within a quotation mark, painful or harmful, right? Because it has to do with our perception of what's happening. Sometimes a loss, right? Remember, sometimes that loss is going to end up being the best thing that could happen to you. In other words, what I'm saying is that gratefulness is the fastest way to transform a negative or potentially negative thing that's happening to you. Okay, you want to change the situation? Start being grateful. A lot of times people say a bad attitude can destroy a good situation. So what I want to do is flip it and say, okay, if a bad attitude can destroy something good, then can a good attitude change something that's bad? Can it alter it? I want you to learn to use your spiritual logic so that you can see, okay, yes, it's over here, but the flip side of that, which you can use for your spiritual advantage, is to say the opposite. Okay, yes, this looks bad. Maybe it could be good, right? If you can say this looks bad and maybe it was actually going to be good, then you can say this looks good and maybe it was going to be bad, but you can change it. Also, in terms of this, I want to say that gratefulness displays humility. These are words that have been expressed through countless religious, spiritual, self-help leaders, okay? Gratefulness displays humility. A grateful heart is a humble heart. Someone who serves others with gratefulness is a humble person, right? So when you're grateful, it shows the universe that you're open to learning more. Okay. Sometimes the lesson is just to learn to be grateful. I would go so far as to say that if you feel like you have a locked door in your life, something that isn't working, something that isn't flowing, try being grateful for whatever that situation is. Maybe gratefulness is the key that you need to change your perception around it, which will then affect that situation and change it for you. There is kind of a interesting reverse here, which is learning to pay attention to things that you aren't grateful for. Once you start paying attention to things that you are grateful for, learning to pay attention to things that you aren't grateful for, it can be like an eye-opener. You don't realize it's so important to kind of sift through your life using meditation tools or mindfulness or breath or whatever it is that you use on a daily basis to kind of clear yourself, to realize, oh, wow, I'm actually the one here that needs to do the work. I'm the one that needs to learn to be grateful here. In some other ways, when you're looking at spirituality, gratefulness is actually a demonstration of faith, right? It's easy to be grateful for something that looks good and that you want. It takes faith to look at something and see something in that is different than how it looks on the outside. And some of the, this shows up in a lot of places. It can show up in your family relationships or karmic relationships. It can show up in how you wake up. Did you take the steps so that you can be grateful that day? One of the most powerful tools you can do is to be grateful first thing in the morning. Thank you that I'm alive. Thank you, universe. Thank you, breath. Thank you, heart, for pumping for me, right? Be grateful for yourself. Even sometimes be grateful for things that you have, that, like little things. Like you can be grateful that your fingers open and close, or that your lips work, or that you have enough water to drink in life, or that your air conditioner is working. I'm trying to think of little things, that you have enough tape, right? So being grateful for little things is a great way to learn to be grateful for big things. There's a saying, if you can't take care of a penny, you can't take care of $1 million, right? If you can't be grateful for the little things, how are you going to be grateful for the big things? So you want to be grateful for that. Even in the Bible, in the Christian Bible, it says, enter into his kingdom with thanksgiving. So there's this idea that if you want to enter into the kingdom of God, apply thanksgiving, apply gratefulness. Let's look at gratefulness and science, because there's actually a lot of studies that have been done on gratefulness. And this is where I think it's really interesting. Did you know that gratefulness can decrease depression, anxiety, difficulties with chronic pain, and risk of disease? Wait. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Gratefulness can improve your sleep. Okay? And cultivating grateful thoughts help you drift into a more peaceful sleep. That's amazing, right? Researchers from the University of Manchester in England looked at the correlation between gratitude and our thoughts before sleeping. And that's how they've discovered this, right? So they discovered not only do you go into sleep more easily, but you get a longer uninterrupted sleep when you're someone who practices gratitude, right? What they discovered is it drives negative thoughts away, especially before bedtime. Gratitude, that was fun. I'm grateful I said that. Gratitude also helps strengthen the immune system. So being grateful can help you not get sick, not contract a disease. Why is this? Diseases have to have a doorway to enter. They have to have a place in your life where energy isn't flowing. Let me imagine your life is like a house with a yard around it, okay? In order to get into the house, they have to go through the yard. The yard has a fence. They have to find a weakness in the fence to get through. Gratefulness patches all those weaknesses so that you don't have to face those spiritual pathogens, and when you're exposed to a physical pathogen, you're less likely to get sick. That's amazing. Gratitude improves pain tolerance. That's interesting. It's also an effective pain management tool. Gratitude helps lower high blood pressure. That's fascinating. This is just like good medicine. Okay. This is learning to be grateful can change your blood pressure. You know, I want to do something right now. People don't realize how fast our bodies can change. Close your eyes. Think of something you really like really like. Just observe what's happening in your body as you're doing this. You have to like really like it. Like it's your favorite, like dog or like whatever it is, job or the results that you got on something that you really earned, you know? So it's so fascinating. Your body changes very quickly based on what you're feeling. Even more interesting, they discovered that the risk of death among women was 9% among women who scored high in optimism. Okay. Optimistic women also scored a 14% lower risk of dying compared to women who were cynical and hostile. So 15%, that's like the difference between $85 and $100. That's pretty amazing. They also discovered that gratitude helps patients with heart illness. There's a UC Davis study in 2015 that the practice of gratitude reduced the biomarkers of inflammation by 7% among individuals diagnosed with congestive heart failure. That's also significant. 7% is the difference between 1 out of every 15 people. If you are 1 out of 15 people and you have been diagnosed with something like that, changing your gratitude means you might be the one who's removed off that list of someone who's going to die. Inflammation is also interesting because it's at the root cause behind arthritis, cancer, all of these like stress response, okay, that create a biomarker of inflammation. So it's interesting. Gratitude prevents overeating, which is interesting, right? If you're grateful, it increases your willpower to resist excessive eating. So interesting. There's a study we talked about in the beginning, Emmons from 2011. Gratitude motivates you to exercise more. That's fascinating. It keeps glucose levels under control. It extends your lifespan. That's fascinating. Okay. So my question is, how does it do all of that? Well, this is how. When you're grateful, it affects your brain. It wires and fires new neural connections. Okay. It enhances your dopamine and serotonin. These are the two neurotransmitters that are responsible for happiness. Okay. So literally, gratefulness changes your brain so that your neurotransmitters are shifting as a physiological response. It also reduces fear and anxiety by regulating your stress hormones. You have less cortisol, right? You feel more in control. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this situation in my life. It's not going to hurt me, right? And it fosters a change in your brain by evoking positive thinking. So gratitude actually fosters positive thinking. It's really interesting. There's so much more. Like patience. This is a big one. Gratefulness increases patience. That's PATIENCE, not like not in a hospital, not patients in a hospital. There was a study at Northeastern in 2014 that demonstrated participants who exhibited higher levels of gratitude over little things they have on a daily basis are more likely to be patient and sensible when it came to bigger things. This specific study was in financial decisions. So that's interesting. They also have done studies to show that it improves resiliency, mental health factors. It makes you optimistic. We said that. It reduces negative emotions like jealousy, which is just amazing. Interesting. They discovered that practicing gratitude can help shift the focus away from what other people have and to what you have that you can be thankful for. So it's really interesting. It also makes you more forgiving. That's a benefit. That's according to University of Malaga in Spain. Gratitude helps you against depression. We said that in the beginning. It helps in recovery from addiction, and it increases vitality. So there's a lot of physical reasons to learn to be grateful. Even being grateful, just learn to be grateful. I want to kind of give you a heads up, though, about something. Sometimes when you're learning to be grateful, you want everybody around you to be grateful for everything. That's amazing. And it steps out of who you are and into trying to change other people when it becomes trying to get other people to demonstrate how grateful they should be, right? So this is kind of, when they talk about toxic positivity, I'm not so into the concept of toxic positivity, but I feel like it's important to allow people to have the feelings that they're having. You don't want to try and remove someone else's feelings, right? You can educate them, but it's important to acknowledge that. So how do you practice gratefulness in a way when you're with someone who's not grateful? Well, sometimes it's going to mean, hey, I was thinking about this. It might actually be better for you that you didn't get XYZ that you really wanted, or that this didn't go the way that you wanted, right? And sometimes you just have to know that's not the way to go. So sometimes you just have to internally practice gratefulness. I'm grateful that this person is happy, even when they're not happy, right? I'm grateful that they're having this opportunity to develop their consciousness. I'm grateful that I'm breathing. I'm grateful that I'm present in this situation. I'm grateful that I'm able to maintain my neutrality in this situation, okay? So you working on your own gratitude can enable the other person to find something to be grateful for themselves. Because not everybody appreciates gratefulness when they're feeling down. So sometimes you just have to practice silently or internally, right? And I think this takes us to the core of our gratefulness podcast, our episode 1, if you will, which is good tools for gratefulness. Number 1, you need a gratitude journal. You need a place where you start writing down things that you're grateful for. One way to do this is to write it down for 7 days. Another way is to write down 5 things every night before you go to bed. Another way is to just pick it up and do it whenever you want to. The reason that you do this is because you want a gratefulness bank, okay? And when you, okay, let's say something amazing happens to you at work, and then you take time to write it down, the feeling of that experience is still inside of you. So when you go back to read your gratitude journal, let's say you're feeling down, the gratitude journal becomes a way of bringing you back into your gratefulness. So you're going back and reading that thing. Oh yeah, that was actually really cool. I really loved that. Okay. So gratitude journal, big one. The second thing, smiling. When people are grateful, it's a natural thing. It just happens. So try learning to practice smiling. If grateful people smile, can smiling make you grateful? I'm going to let you ponder on that. I'm going to let you use your spiritual logic on that. If being grateful makes you smile, does smiling give you something to be grateful for? Next, look for the best in any situation, okay? Look for something good, even if you can't find it. Just look for something and be grateful for that thing. If it takes an hour, it takes an hour. If you can't find anything, move on to something else, and maybe you come back to it. Number 4, just curate a feeling of gratitude inside of you, okay? I say curate because that's kind of like curating an art gallery or curating a design piece or something, right? So you're creating something so that you can go back to it when you need it. Okay, it's there and it's been consciously developed and you can tap into it whenever you need to. One of the easy ways to tap into things is to use affirmations. So look at yourself in the mirror, say, I am grateful for my day. You can actually change this by saying what you're grateful for before it happens, right? If you tell me, if you tell me, I am so grateful that you were willing to take me to this appointment today. What? No, I'm so grateful that you were willing to take me to this appointment today. What appointment? Well, I have to go to this thing and I would be super great. I am super grateful for you being willing to take me. Would you take me? Oh, okay. It kind of creates almost an expectation, right? Because the person's already been grateful to you for something that you've done. That can be a really cool way of doing affirmations, actually. Affirming something that you're grateful for before you get it. It's like drawing a line in the sand and then pouring water into the space above the line. The water is going to flow down that line instead of just going into a puddle and go everywhere. So you're kind of giving direction to the universe. Another tool that you can use for gratefulness, give someone something. Give someone a present. This is an amazing tool. Or give them a phone call. Hey, I was thinking about you. Hope you're doing great. Right? Just reach out. Great. People are grateful to hear from you, especially if you're someone who has made a difference in their life. People want to hear from you. They want to hear what you have to say. They want to know that they love to know that you're thinking, that you're caring about them. And finally, my big tool for the day. What do you do when nothing is working? Well, it's really interesting. Try being grateful for nothing. I don't mean don't be grateful for anything. I mean, be grateful for whatever it is that nothing is, because nothing is something. Okay, maybe that wasn't the best one day tool, but when nothing is working, just stop and just be grateful for something. Just pick anything. Even it can be the feeling of the ground underneath your feet. Or be grateful that you can feel or that you can hear, These are things that you want to develop inside of you so that you can be grateful anytime that you want to. Remember, the reason we're talking about gratefulness is not because of anything having to do with judgment about if it's good to be grateful or bad to be grateful. It's because the secret of being happy comes from changing your perception. And this podcast is dedicated to giving you simple tools that let you change your perception so that you can be happy. Being happy doesn't mean you need to change your life. When you change your perception, you may find that your life is actually amazing and you have so much to be happy for. I'm grateful that you all were here to listen to this podcast today. Join me at edu.namyoga.com/p/simplekeys. You can see me online at Chris C. Merrill. That's my Instagram handle or my Facebook handle. And I look forward to seeing you guys at the next podcast. So thanks a lot. Be grateful. Next podcast, we're talking about thankfulness. That's interesting. Is there a difference between gratefulness and thankfulness? We'll find out. Thanks and have a great day.